Welcome into the Playbook. Happy New Year, everyone. We're glad that you're with us here at Gillette Stadium on Thursday, January the 2nd. It is the setup for the Patriots in their final game of the season against the Buffalo Bills here at Gillette at 1 o'clock on Sunday. I'm John Rook. Evan Lazar is here. Russell Baxter will join us in the second hour of the program today. It is a little bit of, again, for a second straight week anyway, a different time for us here because we decided to go in at 10 a.m. so that way everybody could come in, and Evan will be back around not only for Unfiltered, but he'll have Catch 22 later today. So it's going to be nonstop Evan Lazar today.
I'm sure the people are very excited about that. Can't wait. Can't wait for me to just talk for the next 6 hours.
Cue the Evan jokes in 3, 2, 1. Or the Evan memes in 3,
somebody yesterday was like, oh, he's probably staying up late to play Fortnite. Like, I'm 32 years old. Like, Fortnite.
You don't play Fortnite?
That is way after my time. Like,
I don't play Fortnite, John.
Yeah, no. Like,
Neither do I.
My like younger cousins play Fortnite.
Okay.
They're 16 and 17.
Okay. 16 and 17.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that you had to be that young anymore. I thought for sure that somebody was doing that. There's a ton of stuff to get to today, of course, and we're going to try to touch really on as many of the bases that we can here today. The first things first, Evan will be here until we have the press conferences at 11, so we're going to try to carry some of that here on the program as well, so that stay right here where you are watching the program, and we'll try to get to some of that. And Russell Baxter, of course, our football guru, will join us in hour 2 to go through Week 18 in the NFL. Clearly, there is still some meaning for the Patriots over the last week, and I know you keep track on just about everything there is and what's going on with the team and what should happen, what might happen. And so we're gonna talk a little bit about all of that today. So let's remind you, first of all, the TPX hotline is open and available to you at 855-PATS-500. Yep, pick up the phone, call in. You got a question, you got a comment, a concern, you got a suggestion, whatever it is that you want, you've got a chance, you got a voice here. You have an opportunity to make yourself known. 855-PATS-500 is the toll-free number. You can also send us email. It's podcasts, plural, Podcasts, podcasts at patriots.com. That is the general email address. If you want me to hit me up on X, you can do that as well, at JR Broadcaster. He's at EZ Lazar. So that's where you can find us there. And, yep, I'll entertain your questions on X as well. First things first, I did want to mention at least the news of the day that's happened since you probably got up today, is that the Pro Bowl teams have been announced. And the Patriots have a member on the Pro Bowl team. And I can't say that I'm terribly surprised by it because I think he's been truly one of the bright spots for this team through the year. Although people say, special teams. But you know what, though? Congratulations to Brendan Schooler. He was the lone Patriots member to reach the Pro Bowl via the AFC team. And I, believe that here's a guy that has been as consistent, if not consistently spectacular, doing his job as anybody has been on this team this year.
Yeah, he's got a case that he's the best special teams player in the NFL now that Matthew Slater is retired.
Yeah.
I mean, there's other guys that are really good in that role, JT Gray, players like that, but he's the best, I think, especially as a gunner. He's probably the best. I mean, you cannot single block him as a gunner on punt team.
Nope.
He will beat that easily every time. He sees double teams. Sometimes he sees triple teams in kick coverage. This is a guy that other teams circle every single week. And in the kicking game, I know that some people don't believe the kicking game matters. They have different opinions on that, but they do allow these players to be elected to the Pro Bowl. Like,
correct.
They're on the roster. So if you're on the roster, then you got to recognize them, right? You got to recognize the ones that make it. Now, I think there's another conversation about who wasn't elected to the Pro Bowl for the Patriots, and Christian Gonzalez being the biggest snub, in my opinion, here. But I would also say that
is that really a snub, though? That's what I would ask. I mean, I'm not sure if we can term it that, or if that's something that. Oh, now I've got something barking at me here. I'm sorry.
Do you have
my apologies.
The volume button on
I
top
know.
of the keyboard?
The volume button. Wait a second. It's changed. There it is. Got it. Thank you.
There's got to be a button on the top On the keyboard.
Wait.
No. On the keyboard.
Oh, on the keyboard?
On the keyboard. There's
Where?
not like a little symbol that.
It's a brand new laptop. Give them a break, people.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
There it is. Yeah. Thank you. I'm glad somebody said that. I got a brand new laptop. Had no idea how to use it. I'm like, there's like an extra 1, 2, 3, 4, 8, 12, 15. There's an extra 18 keys on this laptop that I have no idea what they're here for.
When he just looked at the top of the screen, when I said at the top of the keyboard.
Shut up.
That's why I had to come in and save him.
It's in the computer.
Quick, save the old guy.
The files are in the computer.
Fine, be that way. All right, I fixed it. It's all good. All right, so let's. So we mentioned Brendan Schooler.
Yeah.
And you really thought that potentially Christian Gonzalez was worthy?
Yeah, absolutely.
In spite of or despite his team's overall performance.
Well, that's why he's not there, right? Like the reason why he didn't make the Pro Bowl, I think, is twofold. One, the defense and the Patriots have been awful, to put it politely, all year long. I mean, you're on a defense that ranks 30th in the league in DVOA, and going into the last week of the season, you're going to start to get questions of, well, he's a really good, talented player, but if the defense is 30th in DVOA going into the last week of the season, how good really is he? Which isn't fair, but that's how teams are, people are going to look at it. And the second thing is, I see this all the time with Pro Bowl, especially, you almost have to have 2 really good years before you're put on that pedestal of Pro Bowl caliber, right? Like this year for Christian Gonzalez was like a proof of concept, right? Of like, he is a really good player in this league. He's established that now after this season. But a lot of these Pro Bowl awards go to guys that have been good players for multiple years, that have name recognition around the league. Denzel Ward, Marlon Humphrey, those guys. Do I think that you could argue that Christian Gonzalez was just as good as those players, maybe even better? Yes, but those guys have the brand recognition that he doesn't have because of years of service, at that level.
Which is encouraging because now this tells me that, as you suggested earlier, here's another, Patriot player like Matthew Slater that is going to make a name for himself or trying to make a name for himself through a specific duty, especially on special teams.
Yeah.
And so his talent now has overcome whatever detraction that the Patriots team might pull him down, to their level. And that's not new. His talent is rising above it. That's a great sign for the future.
Yeah, look, I think that Schooler making it, the fan vote, I don't think had much of a play in this because he wasn't top 10 in the fan vote, I don't believe, when it ended. But the coaches and the players around the league that get a vote here, especially I would say the coaches that are studying the special teams tape and actually are watching the kicking game closely, recognize how impactful of a player he is in that part of the game. Whereas the fans that are voting for their favorite players in the Pro Bowl ballot probably aren't really thinking too much about that.
No, that's it. Oh, a Patriot player. I can't vote for them.
Right.
They won 3 games all year. All right, so let's tackle the elephant in the room. You've got 1 game left to play. The way that last weekend played out puts the Patriots in a rather unusual position this weekend.
Yeah.
If they lose Sunday to Buffalo, they clinch the number 1 draft pick in next April's NFL draft, which to me is phenomenal to think of. When was the last time Patriots had a number 1 pick? I believe that was
Drew Bledsoe.
It was Drew Bledsoe, and before that, I'm even thinking Kenneth Sims. So it's happened twice in. Gosh, well, it's happened once since I've been here, and I've been here for 33 seasons.
Yeah.
So this is the only other time that's happened since I've been here. It's happened twice since the Patriots were in the NFL.
Yeah.
Because you have to count the Kenneth Sims year,
the modern
draft era, which would have been in the 1970s.
Yeah.
And so this would be the 3rd time for that to happen since the Patriots entered the NFL in 1970, which is remarkable, phenomenal. I don't know that it's necessarily something that you want to terribly be proud of, but that's just the way the tiebreakers are playing down. Now, I kind of asked this somewhat tongue-in-cheekishly immediately following the game last week against, I keep wanting to call the Chargers the Clippers just because of the LAC moniker, but because of the Chargers game, I'm thinking, well, wow, is there any Patriots fan alive that'll actually root for this team to win against Buffalo? And I've heard from dozens. Okay, we'll put it at that. I don't know. Hundreds? Probably not. Dozens? Yeah. Through social media, email, what have you. And I've had one person tell me, I can't root for the Patriots to lose. I have to root for them to win. Everybody else, and this is probably a 49-1 advantage or whatever it might be, says, oh, yeah, they've got to get the first pick. They need to lose this game on Sunday. And I find, first of all, I still find that shocking. I could be wrong about that. If I'm wrong about that, pick up the phone and let me know. 855-PATS-500 if I'm wrong about that. I find it shocking that there aren't more people that want this team to win because everybody's focused on the future. I guess I can understand why. I mean, your team is 3-13.
Yeah.
And if you don't win, you're going to be a game worse than you were even a year ago, and that was a year in which you fired arguably the greatest coach of all time.
Not arguably.
Well, okay, not arguably.
Yeah.
Inarguably the greatest coach of
There
all
you go.
time. Certainly greatest NFL coach anyway.
Yeah.
So I would, strange times we live in, Ev,
Yeah.
to be honest with you. I never thought that this kind of scenario would unfold itself, but it has done that here. And so I ask you, is this a legitimate reason, if there ever was one, is this a legitimate enough reason to quote-unquote tank?
So I'm torn on this because it obviously behooves the Patriots to have the number one pick versus having 2, 3, 4, right? They can't go any lower than 4. But at the same time, in this draft specifically, I'm not seeing anybody at the top of this draft where I'm like really jonesing to have that player on the Patriots. Like, if they don't come away from this draft with Travis Hunter, I am going to be heartbroken, right? I don't love the top of the draft this year. And from what I've heard, it doesn't sound like the league loves the top of the draft either. And specifically to quarterbacks, and I know the Patriots don't need a quarterback. But in order to get that pick, to have a high price tag in an auction for the number one overall pick, to sell it for, a real haul of draft picks, you have to have a quarterback that's worthy of being selected with the number one overall pick to make that happen. So if they had the number one overall pick, and let's say they still have Drake May, but they had it last year, and there's Caleb Williams or Jaden Daniels, or the year before that when it's Bryce Young and CJ Stroud, like those were quarterback drafts. Those were drafts where those players were highly touted, highly coveted quarterback prospects. This draft reminds me a lot more of the 2022 draft, where the Jaguars took Trayvon Walker, number one overall. Kenny Pickett was the first quarterback taken at 20th overall by Pittsburgh. That's what this draft reminds me a lot more
I don't think we'll
of.
go that low before we get Shedeur Sanders off the board.
Probably not, but if you're the Raiders, if you're a team like the Giants, if you're one of these teams, you're sitting there and the Patriots are not taking a quarterback at 1 overall. So if the Patriots aren't taking a quarterback at 1 overall, and the Giants, let's say the Giants go out and they give a bridgy franchise quarterback contract to Sam Darnold,
Right.
or something along those lines, they trade for J.J. McCarthy, whatever the case may be. You go out and do something like that. My point is that I don't know if that team that wants Shedeur Sanders is going to need to leapfrog other teams. Like if I'm the Raiders and I'm sitting 4, 5, 6, wherever, I'm daring somebody to take Shedeur Sanders in the top 5.
Yeah.
Like, go ahead. Like, take Shedeur Sanders. We're not going to give the Patriots an out here. So do I think that it would be in their best interest to have the number one overall pick? Absolutely. It would obviously be better to be 1 than 2. That's just simple math. Do I think it's the end of the world if they don't have the number 1 overall pick? No, because I don't necessarily see a trade package for the number 1 overall pick this year that's going to blow them away.
And I think that's what most people are considering. They want the number one pick because they think they're going to get a bag in return from somebody. And the Raiders and the Giants would be the two candidates that you can think of right off the top of your head that needs a quarterback. And they're going to look at Shadur Sanders and Cam Ward, likely, I would think, from Colorado and Miami, respectively. Neither one of those guys really blows me away, but okay, that's fine. You need the quarterback. The Patriots don't need that. That's fine. What are you going to offer? I've seen all kinds of rumors. I've seen all kinds of proposed trades. Some of them are a little bit silly, but I think a reasonable expectation, if someone really wants the quarterback badly, would be, a swap of ones this year, probably a 2 this year, and maybe next year's 1. Yeah. And if you could get that in return for this year's 1, knowing that, you don't need the quarterback, sure, why not?
Yeah, that's exactly how I feel about it. If they do pick one or have the first overall pick, you're probably going to be selling it for pennies on the dollar just because of the crop of players.
The crop of players isn't as good. You just said that. And so I think, you have to understand, look, you can't hold out for, 6 different picks or maybe a couple of veteran players or receiver order. Hey, that sounds great in theory, but those teams aren't going to give that up when the draft just isn't that deep.
Yeah. I would still do it. Even if they have to sell the pick at a discount, I still
trade out.
I still believe that it's worth the trade out for this team, because if you can get that package, which is a package I've thought about too, maybe a 2026 first plus maybe a day 2 pick in this year's draft, plus obviously swapping picks in the first round.
Why wouldn't you?
It's not the trade that the Bears got, the Panthers got from the Bears, or the Bears got from the Panthers a couple years ago. It's not an RG3 trade like we saw back in the day where they giving up a king's ransom, but it's still better than nothing. It's still better than being stuck picking 1 overall and not taking a quarterback. I think that's the worst place to be in the draft.
All right, so let's just, because this is where a lot of scrutiny is going to undergo. Elliot Wolf and his scouting, guys are going to have a lot of scrutiny here. Yeah, and I think we know that they're under a lot lot of pressure in this offseason. Yeah, and you're right, they should be. That's their job. That's what they signed up to do. So, do you hold out for more? And then if you hold out for more and you don't get what you want, what do you do with the first pick?
It's the worst place to be. And this was always my fear about this specific draft and having the number 1 overall pick. I go back to the 2022 draft with the Jaguars. The Jaguars had Trevor Lawrence. They drafted him the year before. So they had their quarterback, and they were forced to pick a player at 1-1, and they picked Trayvon Walker, who's a solid NFL starter, but he's not a number 1 overall pick, right? He's not. He's not. Now, you could look at the 2022 draft and nitpick and say, well, if they had taken Aiden Hutchinson at number 1 overall instead of Trayvon Walker, maybe we'd be having a different conversation. But just, looking at it objectively, I feel like that's the worst place to be, is not a quarterback team, not a quarterback draft, picking 1 overall where you're just forced to pick a player. Mm-hmm. I don't think that's where the Patriots want to be at all. So, like I keep saying, even if it's at a discounted price from what number 1 overall picks usually go for in a trade down scenario, I'm still pulling the trigger on the trade down. I'm not making that pick at 1 overall.
Well, let's just say, for instance, they hold out, they don't get what they want, and they're forced to take number 1. Who do you take at number 1 based on what is available out there? And I have to admit, this is a really tough choice. It's a scary choice because the needs are many, the choices are few.
Yeah.
Is a number 1 overall pick, worthy of the offensive line? Probably not.
Right.
Cornerback, maybe, and that's where you could bring maybe Travis Hunter or someone like that into the mix.
Yeah.
To me, I think the guy that makes the most sense, and I had a friend of mine kind of asked me this the other day and make the suggestion that, well, we didn't really get a chance to see him because he was banged up a little bit, but Abdul Carter from Penn State, good outside linebacker and a potential edge guy in the NFL. There's a little bit of a pedigree there at Penn State with former Penn State guys having some success already, and I'm wondering if that's good enough for a number 1 pick. And because that is a need for the Patriots to find somebody in the pass rush, but then how much further down do you have to go until you can get what you really need? And I can't I will be I don't know what my reaction will be if the Patriots go through 2 rounds of this draft in April and don't select an offensive lineman.
Yeah, no, I mean that's not an option.
How can you so that means if you took, say, all right, let's say you get stuck with the one pick, you can't make a deal, you don't get value, whatever the reason may be, you've got to score on that number one pick.
Yeah,
Carter would be a guy to me that probably makes a lot of sense right there.
Agreed.
But at the same time, you've got to pick a lineman with your first pick in the next round.
Yeah, so I agree with you on Carter. I think right now, to me, it would be between Hunter and Carter because they're special athletes. And if I'm going to pick somebody one overall, I want him to be a unicorn athletically. I don't want to pick a guy that I think is projecting to be a steady starter in the NFL.
You need a sure thing, like you got with Drake with the 3-pick last year. You need a guy that can come out and do it as a rookie now.
So I don't know if they're sure things, but I know their ceiling is very high.
Yeah.
And if I'm picking one overall, I'm going for ceiling more so than I'm going for floor. So I look at Travis Hunter, and the questions that I have for Travis Hunter aren't going to be answered until some of those pre-draft interview processes begin. You know, the combine, the 30 visits, those types of things. You know, which side of the ball does he want to specialize in? Because he's not playing 50%, 50 snaps a game on both sides of the ball in the NFL.
Right.
Could he be a spot player on defense or a spot player on offense? A package player, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, absolutely. But he's not doing what he did at Colorado in the NFL. That's not happening. No. So you have to sit him down and you have to ask, which side of the ball do you want to focus on the most? And
well, to me, his skills, his transferable skills, I've seen Colorado play enough this year to know that I believe Travis Hunter is a corner in the NFL. He could certainly be a Marcus Jones type of guy who you could use with offensive packages. You can put him in as a kick returner, punt returner, but his longevity in this league is likely, because of his skill set, is likely going to be as a defensive back. I think he's got a little bit of that swivel hipness that Christian Gonzalez has.
Absolutely.
He's got the ability to be athletic running backwards like Christian Gonzalez has. I've always said, and you know this, Evan, we've talked about this on this show, the toughest position in the NFL to me, athletically speaking, is corner. Not quarterback, but cornerback, because you're forced to play running backwards most of the time, or laterally. It's not full on, or set up in the pocket and read defenses. It's all reaction.
Yeah.
And if you're not a superb athlete, the best athletes to me are cornerbacks.
Yeah.
And if you don't have those athletes at cornerback in the NFL, then you don't have much of anything. They found one, I think, in Gonzo. Can they get another? And I think Travis Hunter would be closer to that, being a number 2 guy. Put him on the boundary, whatever you want to do, but get him out there, and then you can go out and you can find somebody that certainly come in and play, the nickel or whatever you want it to be. Honestly, I think that's where he belongs in the NFL. Now, maybe I'm wrong. Yeah. Maybe some team will take a shot at him because he certainly has made spectacular offensive plays for Colorado. I just don't know if you want a guy like that. I mean, to me, I think the Patriots, they've got this bag of free agent money that's out there. They've got to go out and they've got to probably overpay for someone who's going to be in the market. T. Higgins, whoever it ends up becoming, they've got to go get that guy because they have to get past the notion that free agents don't want to come here. And I think that's bull bleep.
I don't think it's bull bleep.
It is bull bleep because they will, if there's enough money, they will go get it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think they offered Calvin Ridley a lot of money. I think they were willing to offer Brandon Ayuk a lot of money. They're just not a draw. Like, they are just not a draw. They have an unstable coaching staff.
Then that's
they have
just
a young
stupid.
Quarterback.
Then these players are not as intelligent as sometimes we make them out to be.
But what's the draw? Like what
money?
Right, but they offered these guys money and they didn't want it.
I don't think
Brandon
they offered.
Ayuk flat out told them, "Don't trade for me."
But if you're offering the same money that Brandon Ayuk got to stay where he was, why would you move? Why would you move?
I don't know the exact
It's my understanding that's
amount.
what happened.
Yeah, I don't know.
So why would you move if you're not getting considerably more? You've got to incentivize these guys to come this way. You've got to incentivize these guys now to say, hey, look, we got a great young quarterback that's going to throw you the ball. And we're going to give you probably more than maybe you're worth. So we're giving this is our push to you. This is our gift to you. We want you to come in and prove that this is what you got. Maybe in years 2 and 3 or whatever it is on down the line, they give him incentives to sweeten the deal even further to keep them up at that top level. Whatever their ego desires, give them that. And I don't think they did that this past offseason with any of these guys. But they've got to do that this year in order to be able to attract and get over the hump that New England is not a desirable destination.
I hear you. I just look. I hope I'm wrong, but if the only alternative there is to just give Brandon Ayuk T. Higgins $35-40 million a year.
I don't think they're going to do that. I think he's
going to get $30 million a year offers from everybody.
Okay.
So if the Patriots are at 32 and a contender is at 30, then
he's going to take the 30 with the contender.
Right.
And that's part of the problem. So
right.
You're going to have to go up a little bit in order to get him. And I think this is the year that you have to do that, Evan. That's my point.
You. I agree with you. I think it's easier said than done. Because
sure, we're not doing it.
Yeah,
but not even from. And we're not writing the checks. So I get that.
It's not even from that standpoint. I just think convincing these players to come here is easier said than done, even if the money is overwhelming, because they're getting life-changing money no matter where they go. Right, so it's about fit. It becomes about other things, ulterior things, just to the money. Because no matter where they're going, no matter where T. Higgins plays football next year, he's going to be a very, very wealthy man.
Oh yeah.
So whether it's here or whether it's in Cincinnati or whether it's elsewhere, L.A., the Chargers are another team that gets floated a lot for him because they really, besides McConkey, they could add more receiver help there. Wherever it is. It's going to be the difference between, $5 to $10 million for him, and it's quality of life. Would you rather be here or would you rather be in LA with Justin Herbert?
You know what they really need to do here? I'm kind of chuckling on it, so I'm thinking about it here. They need a full-fledged, spot-on recruiting coordinator.
They need a couple good drafts.
I understand, but I could see a guy like Matthew Slater being the head recruiting coordinator. And he's the one that's going to go out and he's going to, go out and make the initial contact. Hey, dude, we want you to – this is why you should play in New England. Can you think of anybody better to represent the organization really than a guy like Slate? I can't right now, especially since he's still in the organization. The other thing to this, and I think this directly leads into whether or not the Patriots are going to be able to attract quality free agents, is the Gerard Mayo question.
Right. I mean, you don't know if he's going to be here.
We don't know.
Past any years,
we don't know. We don't know if he'll be here next Monday. We don't know for sure. Now, you and I have said on this program and others, we don't believe anything's going to happen. There will be.
That was before Saturday.
That was before last Saturday.
Yeah.
And last Saturday was significant.
Yeah.
We do need to deal with that for just a moment. Whether we purge it or we embrace it, or you can't erase it is the point here. That was one of the all-time low moments. And like I said, I've been a part of this franchise and this organization for 33 seasons. That's one of the lowest moments I can ever recall. And this goes back to pre-Kraft family arrival here.
Yeah.
Under previous ownership, when James Bush Orthwine owned the team, is when I started with the team. And I don't remember a more bleak outlook on a game day than what we experienced last Saturday here at Gillette. For those that are uninitiated, that's what it was like.
Yeah.
That was very Rod Rust-ish. That was very Dick McPherson-ish. And that's with all due respect to those two great gentlemen.
Yeah.
We've talked about this on this show. I did Rod Rust TV show for a year because nobody else wanted to do it. So we did it, right? Dick McPherson, tremendous grandfatherly type guy. He was a really good college coach at Syracuse. It was, Lord. The owner before Orthwine.
Oh, I'm not good at this.
You don't know.
The wrong person. I wasn't even born
what
yet.
The hell? The Razor Company, Remington.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Remington Razor guy. Victor Kayam.
Yeah.
God. Okay. Thank you. Good Lord. I'm stuck. That he wanted McPherson was a Kayam guy.
Yeah.
That's what he wanted. And he loved him at Syracuse. Everybody loved him at Syracuse. It didn't translate to the pros. This is what happened back in the late 80s and early 90s with this team, post Raymond Berry. And Raymond Berry obviously had some pretty good years when he was the coach here. Got him to a Super Bowl against the Bears. They got spanked, but, That's where we're coming from, that era. That was the first time on Saturday that it felt like 1990 again all over. So the question now stands, do the Crafts want to move forward from that? Or are they going to embrace that? Are they going to be happy with just, a 2 or 3 game improvement next year? I mean, where are we going here? And, while I'm not sure still, that Gerard Mayo is going to be here next week, I still likely believe that he's going to be here, but that there will be other changes made throughout the organization on the coaching staff. He's going to need more help. And I think we all know that those that are still going to be here, I don't know for a fact. You don't know for a fact. We don't know. That we're just surmising, largely because of the magnitude of what happened last Saturday. Even though they had a great, effort, I thought, against Buffalo, and clearly, easily could have won that game 2 weeks ago. And now here they are with the Bills again. And the Bills, they're going to start, Josh Allen, but he's likely not to play more than a quarter, if that. Drake May, we don't know. He's going to start. At least we've been told. We don't know how far he'll go. This could be an absolute bleep show before everything is all said and done on Sunday here. Fact remains is that there are going to be changes made because of what we saw last week, and we know all that did was just peel off the scab.
Yeah,
that's all last Saturday did. It peeled off the scab and revealed the true wound on this franchise. They don't have enough talent, and they don't have the leadership in place right now from top to bottom to coach that talent up. They also, questionably, haven't identified the talent.
Yeah. No, I mean, look, that's totally fair. And the way I look at it personally is the offseason's about Elliott Wolf, in season's about Gerard Mayo. Now we're going to put Elliott Wolf at center stage come here in a week, and we're going to start talking about talent evaluation and drafts and free agency and
it's getting ready to happen.
All that
after this game is over. I mean, and you immediately are on to 2025.
Sure.
The focus from Monday on is going to be on April.
It's going to be on the personnel side. And there's definitely a chicken or the egg debate when it comes to that sort of stuff, right? Is it that they don't have talent, or is it that they're poorly coached, or is it both, right? And I sort of go towards the both side, to be honest with you. And I just think the biggest thing with Mayo and his future with this team is that it just has been rocky from the start, and there's been a lot of rookie coach growing pains, a lot. And I'm not a big press conference guy. Like it doesn't really move me one way or another when he says things at press conferences that people disagree with, or he says things one day and then back. It's not the most important thing to me, but it's part of the puzzle.
Yeah.
You are the face of the franchise.
Yeah.
You are the spokesperson of the franchise.
Right.
So that is part of the puzzle, and messaging and all these kinds of things are important when it comes to being the head coach of an NFL team. So if I saw, though, more importantly, if I saw some schematic wrinkles or scheme-related just innovation on defense specifically, just because that's where his background is on defense, I would feel a lot better about it, because I think there's coaches that had rough first years. And I know we always talk about the Dan Campbells of the world and stuff like that, but there are coaches that have had, but you could see their elite trait. You could see what's made them stand out as head coach material.
And we haven't really seen that with Gerard. And the only thing that has kept him, I think, from being clearly, on the firing line here is Dan Campbell. He has Dan Campbell to thank, I think, for a lot of it right now because of the.
But Dan Campbell is such a different situation.
Okay,
Dan,
and a different personality.
Right.
I totally agree with that.
Dan Campbell had way more coaching experience going into that experience.
He
with
did,
Detroit.
And that's the key.
Right.
But I still think Dan Campbell's turnaround from one year to the next is the only thing that's causing any sort of wait a second now. 5 years ago we may have thought that Gerard Mayo was going to be a future head coach. What's changed? And the answer to that is, well, he's gotten some experience, and it hasn't been positive. But when you see what Dan Campbell has done in Detroit, if you supply him with talent, which obviously Detroit did, he was able to turn it around.
Yeah.
How do we measure success in that regard? Does Gerard and do the Patriots need to win 5, 6, 8, 10 games next year, somewhere in that? Do they need to become competitive? I think, personally, they need to just stop stinking.
Yeah, that's a fair way to put it. I just look at Dan Campbell, and we've had these conversations before. You know, there's two different types of head coaches to me. There's guys that are rah-rah guys. There's culture builders, and then there's X's and O's, wizards, right? Like there's the schematic guys. When I look at Gerard, I'm still not sure which one he is. I still don't really know what kind of identity he wants for this team.
Is he an X and O guy, or is he a CEO?
Yeah, like in Detroit with Dan Campbell, they stunk. They were 3-13-1. We all know the record, right? We all know this by now. They stunk, but he was a galvanizing personality. Like, you could tell that he could be a leader of men, and that he, when given the proper talent by the front office, was going to get those guys to play and to buy in and to play hard and to compete. I just haven't necessarily seen that sort of side with Gerard. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist, because that was, if we're being honest, like, that's what really was the sell. I would say, was that he was going to be a leader, and that is what he was as a player. And so I think that is there within him.
He wasn't really a vocal leader as a player, though.
Oh, he was. He was a guy that.
But I thought Gerard was
towards.
more as a player, and a damn fine one at that. As a player, he was more of a lead by example guy.
I wouldn't say that. I talked to a lot of his teammates for a piece right after the Patriots made the hire. Dante Hightower, Jamie Collins, going back a ways, to some of his teammates, Devin, that were Brandon Spikes, a lot of guys. And Gerard was the leader on that defense. He was, especially in the linebacker room, he was a coach in that room.
A vocal guy?
They called him Gerard Belichick because he was, that was it, right?
Okay.
Like, he was that kind of guy.
And therein, I think, honestly, that could be part of the problem here, because he's trying to be what he learned how to be.
Yeah.
And I don't think this team needs that right now. This team needs a kick in the pants.
Yeah, I think he's trying to, almost was trying so hard to be the opposite of Bill that it kind of backfired on him.
That's backfired too.
Yeah, I think
Gerard needs to be who Gerard is. Who is Gerard Mayo?
I think this is who he is. Behind the scenes, I think he's been a similar guy to what he was as an assistant with the Patriots. It comes back to, if you're not going to be the X's and O's coach, if you're not going to be the schematic genius, right, then you need to surround yourself with schematic geniuses on your coaching staff. Like, your coordinators need to be doing that. I'll give you, stick with the Detroit example. Ben Johnson is doing that, right? Like, Ben Johnson is making up for the fact that Dan Campbell is not a scheme whiz, because Ben Johnson is. Aaron Glenn, their defensive coordinator, is also going to be a head coaching candidate.
Sure.
He's a very good defensive mind.
Yep.
So he has surrounded himself with a very, very good coaching staff so that he can just lead from the top.
Right.
And I think what we've seen here in New England, AVP, I think, has more or less done his job. Now, it hasn't been perfect, far from it, but more or less has done his job. But he's not an innovator. He's not Ben Johnson. He's not Cliff Kingsbury. He's not, one of those types of coaches. He's more of a developer, I would say, of quarterbacks than he is a schemer, a play designer, that type of guy. And then DeMarcus Covington was also thrown into a position that he was green for, that he was really, going to have to learn on the job as a defensive coordinator. So that's an option for them if they don't want to completely blow this up, is to try to find, at least on one side of the ball, a coordinator that is really going to run the ship in terms of the X's and O's. But I have concerns about the overall direction of what we've seen. And I think all of us do.
And it's only going to be, I don't know. Does this weekend decide it? And here we come back to, what one of our original premises was for today. Do you go out and try to win this game because guys have to, save their jobs? Or do you, basically you go out and just go through the motion because the franchise wants desires, whatever you want to call it, the number 1 overall draft pick in the NFL draft. And the fact that you're even in position to have to lose a game in order to win the game, the bigger picture, is completely ludicrous.
So they're not going to take the game. That doesn't.
Well, that's the old Herm Edwards thing. Hello, that doesn't, you play to win the game.
Well, it also just doesn't exist in the NFL. I'm sorry. It exists from the top levels of the organization potentially. So could they go out into this game and not put their best foot forward in the game on Sunday from an organizational standpoint?
Sure, because coaches have they have the call on who plays. So if you want,
they're not going to. My point though is that I don't think that they're pulling guys from the game on purpose. I don't think that they're going to go into this game and not play Drake May on purpose. I don't think that they're going to go into this game and put practice squad guys out on the field to lose on purpose. But will they go all out to win this football game?
I think they'll treat it like an exhibition game.
Right.
This is going to be, preseason game number 4.
Yeah. They're on the coach and the player level, you really can't tank. You can't take a game because that's your livelihood. What the players put on film is their livelihood. So if you're a player in this league, whether it's here or it's your impending free agent or whatever the case may be, if you put purposeful bad film out, then you're not going to get a job.
No.
Right? You're going to lose yourself a lot of money.
That's correct.
So,
which is why the whole tanking thing is ludicrous.
Yeah. No, it's not ludicrous from the top up, though. Like, if you're talking about, like, Elliott Wolf and Gerard and the Crafts making
they can make decisions that would cause you to play poorly. Right. They can, but for players' effort, hey, I'm just going to, hold off here because, the coaches told me or whatever. That's ludicrous. Okay,
yes.
and for fans to think that the players don't care and that they're going to buy into the whole, the organization is better off if we lose this game. They're not going to do that. The players play to win. That's why they're here. And as you suggested, if there's bad tape on them, it can haunt them to the next job or the job after that or the present job or whatever. That does not happen. If you've ever put on football pads in your life, if you've ever played a sport at a high level in your life, I don't know a soul that's ever said, I'm just going to go through the motions here.
No, that's not happening. Now, could they make high-level decisions at the top of the organization to, like I said, not put their best foot forward, to not go all out to win the football game?
It's up to the coaches. I mean,
It's
they're
possible.
the ones that make the call. They're the ones that make the substitutions.
Now, if I was Gerard Mayo, I would want some assurances before I went out there and did something like that. Like if we go out there on Sunday and I'm, not going for it on 4th downs, or I'm not running Drake, or like whatever the case, or I'm not playing Drake, right, or whatever the case may be, and then you're just going to fire me Monday morning because we look terrible in the game, that obviously wouldn't work either. So there's a lot of complications.
Well, to his credit, he's said consistently that he has constant conversations, and discussions with the Crafts.
Yeah.
So, and again, unless he's being disingenuous, we have no reason to think that he's being truthful. Then that wouldn't be an issue.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be an issue. So if this team does go out there and throw up a stink bomb again on Sunday, then, all bets are off the table on Monday morning.
Yeah. I just wish that, for him and his longevity here, I just wish we had seen some sort of upward trajectory to end the season.
I agree.
Some sort of, outside of Drake, who I think we are all really high on and excited about, if we had seen some sort of progress from any area of the team, then you could feel better about him coming back next year. I just don't see where they go from here with him coming back next year. And I would also just say that now you're going into 2025 with the coach on the hot seat.
Yeah.
And so the second that it starts poorly, if they start 0-2, 0-3, 1-4.
Then what do you? Yeah.
We're starting to get into in-season firing.
Well, let's
type
back
of
it up to what we were talking about earlier. I mean, if you've got a coach on the hot seat going into the year, how do you really attract those high-priced free agents that you're going to overpay to come here?
Yeah, and look at the coaching staff too. Like if you're an offensive coordinator candidate or a defensive coordinator candidate, and you're not 100% sure that Gerard Mayo has staying power in New England, why would you come here for 1 year?
Which is why the better business decision here, this is my opinion, okay, only, is probably to clean house.
It's hard to argue. It's hard to argue. I don't know what I would do because I don't necessarily have the conversations with Gerard Mayo.
Nobody does.
But
he's got other things on his mind. Yeah, he's got other
that.
things on his mind. He's trying to win a football game, whatever.
Yeah.
But the thing that I keep going back to is that, in preparation, this team just isn't buttoned up.
Right.
There are too many mistakes that are being made late in the year that should have been corrected and cleaned up in training camp.
Yeah, the defensive stuff is what really bothers me the most.
And then on the offensive line, the jump starting, and it's just like, wow.
Like the offensive line, though, I can excuse away for talent deficiencies.
I can't. No, listen, there's a such thing as discipline. When the snap count is, don't move until the snap count. That's football 101.
I hear you, but like at right tackle, Trey Jacobs is a waiver claim at the end of the summer that they plucked off of waivers, and he's now starting games. Like they had a guy, Ben Brown, starting at center for the majority of the season, who was on a practice squad that they signed off the Raiders practice squad to come here and start games.
Okay, I'll buy that.
Vidarian Lowe's a backup in the NFL. He's not a starting tackle. And then we have, a rookie at left guard and Layden Robinson for most of the year. You really have one offensive lineman that's a proven commodity in the league in Mike Onwenu. So I can excuse a lot of the things offensively in terms of execution being talent related. I can. Defensively, I still stand by the fact that I think that this defense is more talented than what they've put on tape. I think they are a better defense than what they've played like this season. And the main reason why they haven't played up to that is fundamentals. Like they don't tackle well, they don't pursue well.
That's true.
They don't. Their eye discipline is not good. Like they have fallen apart.
Teams
on the
are
details.
attacking Kyle Duggar to no end now.
Yeah,
we've seen it on all the tape and all the film. And I don't know if it was his injury earlier this year or whatever it was that caused him to miss a couple of games. He's regressed mightily.
Yeah, across the board they've regressed mightily.
And I'm wondering how much of a factor did Juwan Bentley's early injury really play into this now?
Yeah, I mean, if that's the case, and look, no disrespect to Juwan Bentley, he's a really good player, but he's not Ray Lewis. Like he's not, he's not. But I hear you. Like in terms of communication, in terms of leadership on the field, he was a very, very big loss, and it's obviously had a domino effect on Jelani Tavai as well, because now he's sort of playing a different role in a different position in this defense. But on the whole, they've really regressed across the board, talent-wise on defense. Besides Christian Gonzalez, Kyle Duggar, Jelani Tavai, Keon White. All these guys that they came into the year, one way or another, expecting to rely on these players. They were expecting to rely on those three guys in particular this season. They were supposed to be a part of the solution for this defense going forward.
And they haven't been.
And they've been a problem.
Yeah.
And to me, that's coaching. Like Kyle Duggar didn't just all of a sudden forget how to play football. Right, you didn't have the year that he had last year and the year before that, and then all of a sudden he just forgot.
Is it possible that these guys that we've talked about have tuned out the coaches?
I don't want to go that far. I don't know that for facts. I don't want to speculate on that. But I think it's possible that they're not getting the right kind of coaching or the coaching that they need out of that. This staff. I think that's entirely possible. It's tough to watch this defense right now because it's not just the macro level. They have no talent on that side of the ball. They have players that have played decent football for this team in recent years. I just named a couple of guys that have played well for this organization before this season, and they aren't playing well now. And so much of it is just fundamentals like run fits and tackling and taking on blocks and physicality and pursuit to the football. Like so much of defense is just effort, man. Like it's just want to, right? Like it's just that ability to fly around out there. And I just don't see that from this defense. I don't see them getting that out of this defense. And that doesn't even get into like the X's and O's and what they're trying to do schematically. Like that's just the baseline. If you do that as a defense, if you are a relentless pursuit defense and you fly to the football and you tackle well and you take on blocks well and you fit the run well, like you can be a league average defense with less talent just doing that. And so to see all that kind of stuff drop off has really bothered me. Like that, the offensive side of the ball, they got a lot of work to do talent-wise.
All right, so before we get to the press conferences coming up here in just a couple of moments, and before we let you get out for that, two quick things. Number one, how do the Patriots game plan for Sunday against the Bills? The Bills have no incentive. They're locked in at the 2 spot right now, in the AFC playoffs. They've said they're going to play Josh Allen a little bit. My guess is that most of their second liners are going to play. How do the Patriots and how should the Patriots approach this?
Yeah, it's interesting because I was listening to Jim Harbaugh was on Jim Gray with Bill Belichick, and the two of them, are kind of chuckling back and forth about this notion of, well, just rest everybody. Well, you can only dress 48 guys, right? And it's not like preseason where you have a 90-man roster where you can bring in third and fourth stringers. So some people have to play in the game. Now, do you have to, if you're the Bills, do you have to play Josh Allen? No. You can play your backup quarterback. But some people have to play in this game for Buffalo. So I'm expecting this to, from the Bills standpoint, to be a mix. Like, I think there will be some starters out there. Will it be their key starters? Like, probably not. But it will be some starters because some people have to play. For the Patriots, I expect them to put out a regular
lineup
effort in this game.
In other words, not holding anybody back here.
No, I don't expect any. Now, could certain tweaks be made to get looks at younger players that maybe you wouldn't do in the middle of the season? Yeah, absolutely. Like, I could see Caden Wallace starting at this game at right tackle over Trey Jacobs, which isn't really saying much, but like stuff like that. Could I see Kendrick Bourne kind of taking a little bit of a backseat in this game to let Javon Baker and Jalen Polk play a little bit more regular playing time? Yes, but I don't think that they're going to go out there and put a JV squad out on the field and purposely try to lose this game. I think they're going to go into this game with the intent to win. And I know that bothers people, but that's professional sports.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Before I let you go then, I got to get your thoughts on what transpired in New Year's Day bowl games.
Yeah.
The playoff was exciting on Wednesday. It was exciting. I think Texas.
One game was exciting.
Well, at least the Texas-Arizona State game was pretty
Awesome
exciting.
Game. Yeah.
Ohio State was impressive in their performance over Oregon in particular. So I'm just your thoughts on A, the playoff, and B, how could any of what we saw over the holiday benefit the Patriots come draft time?
Oh, yeah. Look, we were talking about this before we were recording. I think this is great for draft evaluation because you're watching these guys, these top prospects that you're considering for the Patriots, go up against the best of the best, and you're watching it in concession, right? So it's week to week. It's not like, oh, they played this team in October and now they're playing this team in December. No, we're watching Kelvin Banks go through a gauntlet of top 10 defenses, right through the end of the playoff, hopefully, for your Longhorns, right? So you're watching that. You're watching
by the skin of their teeth.
Guys that are maybe not top 10 prospects, but I'll just give you a name like Emeka Ibuka on Ohio State. I think is a really intriguing top of the second round receiver for the Patriots. He might go a little bit ahead of that. You might have to trade up into the end of the 20s to secure him, but he's going to be right into that, Keon Coleman, Lad McConkey, Jalen Polk category last year. That's going to be Ibuka this year. A really intriguing player. So you see them. You see Jack Sawyer. You see, the other players on Ohio State that they have because they're just got NFL players everywhere. So it's exciting to see all those guys in a very, very competitive environment. So you really see who the dogs are, right?
Yeah.
You really see that. And B, you see them against top competition. So from a draft perspective, if you just want to watch a few tapes, like I watch a lot, right? I'm not expecting people that have other jobs and things like that to do that. But if you just watch 2 games of Kelvin Banks in the college football playoff, you're going to find out a lot about that player.
That's why I told people to watch him.
Yeah.
You're looking at a guy is going to be high on the Patriots, list of wannabes.
Yeah.
And, I don't know where you pick him. Do you pick him as high as 2, 3, or 4? Do you pick him as low as 7 or 8? Wherever you pick him, he's probably going to be a candidate to be selected by New England because they're going to we know what they need. And so you want to look at how he handles the rush and how he keeps the pocket clean and how he, can run ball. You're going to want to look at all these different things.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, he was really impressive against Clemson. I haven't studied the tape from
He
yesterday.
tweaked his ankle against Arizona State on Wednesday. He tweaked his ankle a little bit. He was able to return to the lineup, but Texas struggled mightily in the third quarter when he wasn't in there, and they had to go more to their two backup tackles.
Yeah.
And that was part of the reason why Arizona State got back in the game.
Yeah.
Part of the reason, not the entire reason.
Yeah.
Part of the reason.
Yeah,
I'm not a big Quinn Ewers fan anymore.
I understand. He's a really solid prospect. I think that he's Joe Alt or one of these like elite blue chip tackle prospects. Probably not, but just looking at last year's draft, like he would have been in that Olufushanu tier to me, right? And that second tier.
Yep.
So if I'm the Patriots, like I'd probably rather take him at the back half of the top 10 after a trade down. But in this draft, you can't get too picky because there isn't those top talents to push him down the board. So if they end up walking out of the first round at their first pick in the draft is Kelvin Banks, I would like to see how they got there, first, but I wouldn't be overly critical of that pick.
Who's your pick for the national title?
I think Ohio State's the best team. I think that was pretty clear based off of what we saw against Oregon. But I do really wonder about Georgia and if they are just going to kind of hit their stride here at the right time and just kind of roll. But without Carson Beck, I'd probably take Ohio State.
Here's my pick for the national championship game. No, that's all right. That's fine. I got to stay with my Longhorns, but I say it's Texas versus Penn State.
I would love that because then we'd get Abdul Carter versus Kelvin Banks.
Isn't that great?
We could just decide
and then we
right
could
then
just focus in on those two guys because I
yeah.
guarantee you they're going to face each other.
I mean, look, Abdul Carter he got hurt in the game the other night, obviously, but I watched all of his snaps back, and I mean, he was just on a force. Like, he is a terror. Like, he was just blowing everything up. Like, just automatically pops off the film with his athleticism. A little undersized. Like, he's not Willie McGinnis, right? Like, he's not going to go out there and set the edge and all that kind of stuff. But he is going to get in the backfield, man. Like, that guy is going to live in an NFL backfield. So I'm excited about him. I have to admit, I really high on him.
And in spite of some of the lopsided scores in a couple of these games, I think the college playoff is good. I think it's good. I think they can tweak it a little bit better, maybe with some seeding purposes, whatever.
Yeah.
But I think it's good. Everybody's getting a shot here, and I think for the most part, everybody's proven they belong at some level, in that final 12. So
Arizona
I think it's
State
actually
saved you.
Yeah,
It saved the college football a little bit because their comeback and the fact that game got pushed into overtime. I think that's going to be big because I expect Georgia to roll Notre Dame today. I do. So then you're really going to have all blowouts across the board except for the
Texas,
one overtime game, and then that's when you start to get into the too many teams, all that kind of stuff.
That finish. I mean, if you missed the Peach Bowl. Oh, my goodness. It was, candidate certainly, I think, for game of the year thus far.
Well, it's funny because I looked down for a second, and Texas had already scored in the second overtime on one play, and I was like, wait, they scored again?
Yeah,
like, when did that happen?
The tight end, Gunnar Helm, who, by the way, pretty good prospect.
Yeah. Yeah, so is a
two really good tight ends. Yeah, the one at Penn State.
Warren,
yeah. Amazing guys. Warren's the first guy that I really can look at and say, ooh, he looks like Gronk.
Yeah, he's kind of, I never like comparing guys to Gronk or Kelsey or like that sort of level of tight end, but
he's got more of a physical presence than Travis Kelsey ever had. And that's with all due respect, because I covered Kelsey in college when he was in Cincinnati, and I was doing Big East football. Yeah. Okay, so and he was a good receiver. He's developed. Warren he's off the charts physical.
Yeah.
And he's got athletic ability where he can go up and get it. I mean, if you watched any of that game, if their first-round game, it's like against Boise, wow.
Yeah.
I mean, he was impressive.
He's a talented player for sure.
All right,
I got to go.
Get off. Yep, you got it. Easy Lazar, at Easy Lazar on X. And we've got a lot more that we are going to try to get to here today, but we can remind you first and foremost, Patriots fans, if you want to see Toyota's best offers, including those not seen on TV, go to buyatoyota.com. It's Toyota's official website for deals from the official vehicle of the New England Patriots. Toyota, let's go places. And Bud Light is the official sponsor of the Patriots as well. Easy to drink, easy to enjoy. Bud Light is the official beer sponsor of the New England Patriots. Russell Baxter will join us at the bottom of the next hour, or bottom of this coming up hour, to go through the Week 18, the playoff scenarios. We'll get his thoughts on, tanking, which is, I even hate using that term. You know that if you've watched this show at all, listened at all in the past, because there's really no such thing. Nobody tanks. Professional football players don't lose purposely for the reasons that Evan and I just discussed. Too much can follow you in this day and age, right? It's the same reason why you don't, in theory, some of us that are maybe a little smarter than others don't say things that ignite people on social media because it can come back to haunt you. So I gotta think that that term should probably be stricken from the sports lexicon. That being said, we know how you feel. I know how I feel. I'd love to see the Patriots have from a purely selfish point of view. I'd love to see the Patriots have the number one pick. We opened up the show today talking literally about, this would only be the third time in modern history that the Patriots have had the number one overall pick. And that's an opportunity. It's almost an honor that you stink so bad that you get the number one pick. But it's also, there's a lot of pressure that's inherent with that because you don't want to mess it up. Most teams don't. Most drafts have players who are athletes who are definitive. In other words, top overall pick. Got to get this guy. We need this guy. And so it's hard to screw it up. Patriots had the 3 pick last year with Drake May, and as it turns out, hey, you know what? He's as good as any of them. Maybe better than one or two others. Although, Jaden Daniels led his team to the playoffs. Bo Nix, for Denver, even though he was picked behind the top 3 guys, Bo Nix, I think, had an extraordinarily solid rookie year for a young quarterback. But Drake's right there. Once they finally put Drake into the mix and included him in the process and allowed him to learn on the job, I think we've seen he's as good as any. So I think the Patriots have their guy. And I think most everybody can kind of agree with that. The question is who do you get to play with him? Who do you target in free agency? Do you target the lineman in free agency? Do you target the receiver in free agency? Do you target the edge in free agency? And which ones do you go get through the draft? Who's easier to get through the draft? And where you select in the draft, does that have a direct cause and effect on who you select and which need you attack? See, these are all decisions that, Elliott Wolf, that Patriots Brain Trust, ownership, they're a part of it. They're all going to have to determine in pretty short order. But the first thing you have to determine is all right, who's going to be here to help in not only making these decisions, but coaching these decisions up. That's the key issue right now. Black Monday is something that I don't think the NFL really wants to necessarily emphasize, even though it does happen. The day after the NFL regular season is completed, they call it Black Monday for a reason because that's usually when coaches are fired. Last year, I think there were 7. I think most indications are that there will probably be somewhere in that vicinity of number of teams making changes again coming up in just a few short days. If I had to make a choice, I would tell you that I don't think the Patriots make the choice. I don't right now. I don't. But if they go out and they put up another, stink bomb, for lack of a better phrase, like they did against the Chargers last weekend, all bets are off the table. They have to be. I don't know how you can run a business as a CEO knowing that your lieutenants underneath you aren't doing their jobs or aren't capable of doing their jobs. I'm sorry, what was that?
Alex Van Pelt just went live.
Okay, great. All right, let's go ahead and take you then to the news conferences. Alex Van Pelt. Certainly, he's front and center in a lot of this discussion right now. He's meeting with the members of the Patriots media.
Looks like they're having a little technical glitch.
So we're not getting audio?
We're going to have to come back to you. They're working.
Putting him out there in this game in a competitive situation.
Absolutely. I mean, we got to go out and compete. We're trying to win the football game, so we'll have everything available there. He's got to do a better job, and we had this conversation. When you're on the sideline, you're not close to the sticks. You got to get out of bounds there. Unfortunately, he took a pretty good shot, was able to come back, but he's got to understand he's got to protect himself as well in those situations.
Alex, winding back the clock, when you interviewed or shortly thereafter, what was the expectation set for year one if you got the job? This is what we hope to achieve, knowing new quarterback, everything that was coming.
Sure. I mean, it's a lot of moving targets there. We wanted to establish a system first and foremost and get that taught, get the play style taught, how we're going to play here, moving forward. And then at that point, it was just a matter of, who were we going to draft at that position. We knew we were going to take a quarterback. We knew we had some holes, and we were going to have to fill those throughout the course of the year and through the next years. And but I think, again, there were expectations to win more games than we did, and that's the unfortunate part.
Yesterday, Hunter Henry talked a little bit about carrying over a system from when you're doing Hunter. For you, what's the value of doing that and having the same system?
Well, you could look at a lot of the quarterback development over the years, and the guys that have, the Hall of Fame guys that have been in systems that were similar to the same year after year after year, and that just builds that knowledge of you that you have in the system. In many different levels. I think it's important for consistency and continuity, especially for younger players, and to stay within a system.
Alex, can you shed any light on, looking back that last game, why Ramondre Stevenson started? Were you told that the plan was?
Yeah, I mean, that I know Coach addressed that, and that was a coach's decision, and he has my full support in all of that. Ultimately, both of our backs need to do a great job of ball security, but I'll leave it at that.
Alex, whether it's in the offseason or during the season, how much emphasis do you put on trying to see what other teams are doing with similar offenses and trying to maybe take things and add them to your
Yeah,
system?
a lot, and that comes down to when you do the breakdowns of the opponents that you're playing. Oftentimes, we'll pick like offenses to see how our scheme, or what their adjustments were to our scheme. So many times we'll go and, hey, maybe Cleveland's up, or maybe the Tennessee Titans, similar run game. We'll pick those games to evaluate and break down. So quite often you're looking at other teams when you're doing that.
Alex, this is a time of year where there's often reflection. Drake was in here yesterday. He was talking about, showed him something at like rookie camp or something, a play he made and how he's grown up. I'm curious for you. You've been pretty honest and frank with us as a play caller in this role. How do you think you've grown, and where do you think maybe there are areas you can still?
Yeah, there's definitely growth. I mean, you grow in every season, regardless of your position. I think you gain knowledge throughout the course of the year, whether you're coaching quarterbacks, whether you're the quality control coach. It really doesn't matter. Your growth is every year, no matter what the position. Some of the things that I would like to take back are some of the bad calls that I made throughout the course of the year. Really starting with the fumble last week. That was a tough one. Put those guys in a tough spot. There's a handful of those in each game. You're like, man, I wish I'd have done something differently. So just, keeping that, again, the growth and the knowledge of where I messed up during the course of the year and how can I be better for that.
With that said, how much would you like, at the end of the year, will you take a bucket and say bad plays,
good plays? What did I learn? What can I do better? How much you look
I
forward
do
to
it.
that?
Yeah, I do it in every game. So at the end of the game, I take my notes and I type in a bad play call here. I got to give the guys something better here. So I'll definitely look at those throughout the course of the season at the end of the year and say where could I get better.
How much better can you think you can be next year at this play call?
I think again, it's that continued growth for all of us, not just the players, but for the coaches as well.
Alex, how have you seen defenses defend you down the stretch when there's sufficient tape on Drake? You have your identity built. Have you seen them defend you the last 3-4 games?
Yeah, there's definitely some rush patterns that encourage the quarterback to leave the pocket. I think teams will start to use with Drake. You start to see a little more spying of him to stop him from running, especially on third and medium. I've seen that from Buffalo the last time we played him. So there's definitely changes to the defense, due to the film on Drake.
Are those things you'd say is fair next season? Like, okay, we got to find answers for this.
Yeah,
understand
absolutely. And that's part of the coaching and the development and the growth. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you guys. Thank you guys so much. Really, thank you.
Okay. Alex Van Pelt, at least once we're able to get a couple of audio issues squared away, but you got at least a little bit of an idea of how he feels, what he's thinking, what he's doing, what this team is liable to be going after as far as this Sunday's game is concerned. Look, I wouldn't expect anyone at all to, say anything other than be truthful that, hey, we're going to go out, we're going to win the game. Everybody's playing for a job, whether they're under contract or not. Everybody's playing for a job. Everybody's playing for a job. The coaches, the players, everyone is playing for a job this week. And if you've never been put in that situation yourself, I can tell you that it's obviously it's not a comfortable position to be in. I just, listen, this is going to continue to be a course of conversation until one way or another we determine after this weekend whether or not it's going to happen or not. But to say that you could actually lose purposely in order to ensure, a higher draft pick it's the opposite of what competitive athletics is supposed to be about. And I would tell you that fans who say, oh, you should just not play people and, lose on purpose for whatever reason, you haven't played the sport, or certainly not at a higher level. And that is just not going to exist. All right, let's go back to the press conferences, and let's let you listen to defensive coordinator DeMarcus Covington.
One of our players that we have to do that on an early down and a third down base. And one thing about Yannick, just want to thank him for everything he's done, or did for us, as he was here for those couple of weeks. And true professional who, came in here every day and worked hard.
Any insight on who would be consideration there in that position?
Yeah, we're still working through that at the moment.
How do you view the season that Christian Gonzalez has had?
Thought he had an unbelievable season for us. Just proud of his growth coming from year one, obviously, being injured throughout their year one, then coming into this season, off-season training camp, and then just the positions that he, did for us, whether it's matchups or just being just him as a person. So looking forward to him, his growth for the future, and I think he did an unbelievable job, for us this year, and just proud of him.
Any thoughts on him being a Pro Bowl snub?
Yeah, I definitely think he deserves to be, a Pro Bowler. I mean, he's one of the best corners, if not the corner in the league. So, for sure.
The Bills have been forthcoming about the fact that Josh Allen's going to start, and they're going to pull him fairly early in the contest, it sounds like. How does that change things for you from a game planning defense?
Nothing. I think we have to, for us, is about what we do as a defense. It's about like the things that we can go out there, executing the calls, playing the defense, playing within the framework of our defense fundamentals. And then when you look at the quarterback, both of the quarterbacks can have the ability to run, throw. With that, obviously, we have one as a starter, one as not, as a backup. But from a game plan standpoint, that's the reason why they have a player like Trubisky, because he can do the things that Josh Allen can do. So not much for us.
Marcus Dietrich mentioned that the pass rush against the Chargers wasn't really up to snuff. I'm wondering, how do you think it can improve so that you can finish strong?
Yeah, so I think for us, like one, just we talked about it this, really every day this week of just fundamentals of games, and then also just like it's tough when you get max play action pass, 7-man pro versus 4-man rush. So on an early down base too. So there's a give and take of either providing more people within the rush, and then also just some of the fundamentals of like on third down, all right, of the different games of those different things too. We've been having a good amount of, I would say, a revolving door on some pieces of players too, with going in there, running different games, how we want to do it, how we do it NEP style throughout the year. So I think we just got to continue to talk about those deals on the fundamentals of not that this is a game, but how do we run it here, in New England? How do we run it, versus this team? And then also just the thought of like, what do we do, versus max play action pass, when we're getting that on a daily dose.
What do you make of Keon Rich here and in the last week or so about not feeling like he's necessarily played up to snuff, but also feeling a disconnect with the system and what's going on? I know you obviously communicate with him. What do you sense from a young player like that who's expressing some growing pains?
Yeah, I think, man, I love Keon because, I remember going to Georgia Tech and sitting with him, during the draft process. And then also bringing him in, drafting him, having him last year in the room, great. I think his mindset and everything that he has for us is awesome. Want to be better, want to get Coach Hart, want to win, and that's what you want. Love the game. That's what you want from your players. And so, for him, I think he's done a good job going from year one to year two. And again, Keon, when you look at him, he still hasn't played a lot of ball. He has not played a lot of ball. When you go to college and then you go, starting out as a tight end, then going to a defensive end, and then now you bring him in the league, switching between inside, outside linebacker, handing the dirt. So there's a lot of development. There's still the growth. The ceiling is high for him. So I'm excited to continue to work with him, grow him as a player, as a person, as a man, and look forward to his growth. And you know what? Everything's not going to be perfect. Everything's not going to be perfect as far as our, his every game is not going to be perfect. You want it to, all right, but I'm glad he has the understanding that like he wants to be perfect, which is good. That's a good way to look at it.
So Marcus, how do you bring a guy like that back in? I mean, he's used the word disconnected multiple times. Sometimes players just have tough seasons, but what can you do as a coach to connect with Keon again?
I'm already connected with Keon. So that's how I look at it. Like I'm connected with Keon. There was no disconnect from me and Keon. So I think Keon, we continue to work every single day, like we did yesterday. Going to work today on the practice field. We're already done that in the meeting room. We're going to go out there on Sunday, do the same thing. So like I said, I love Keon. We have a great relationship. Like you talk about a guy that come to my house, eat Thanksgiving with me. Like, so as far as like those different type of things, I think theirs can be one narrative, then another narrative. Like he's trying to do what I'm trying to do, win. All right, he's trying to do what y'all want to see, win. So that's the beauty of the game. There's always that's why you like to talk to people face to face on things, because just like when you text, like you never know how that is interpreted. So I think always when you talk as man to man, face to face, like there's no disconnect.
Has he spoken to you about the need for change, whether it's how he's utilized or just basic changes with the scheme, perhaps?
Yeah, we've me and Keon talk every day. Again, we talking about we're coming to work every single day, talking about a guy who comes in here, the first one in the building, pretty much every single day. And for me and Keon, like we're looking for the same thing, is to work. And it's not for scheme or anything. It's more to just get better, period. How do we get better as on the field? How do we get better as a unit? When we all play better as a unit, we all play better. So it's not just an individual Keon. It's not just an individual coach. It's just not. And how do we win as a team? So that's what we're trying to do.
Is he kind of an example of, like, a lot of coaches in all sports will say today's players, they kind of, in the past, do this, boom. More now it's, okay, why? He seems to be very, in tune with, why are we doing certain things this way? Everything else seems to be that kind of player. Is he like that?
Yeah, I think that's the generation of it, a lot of people, and that's our job as coaches to always think about, and that's what as a teacher too, because I think you put yourself back in the classroom. You guys putting yourself back in the classroom.
Never happened.
Like you always want to know why, right? You don't want to know why, and a lot of guys, I get that from my son. Like why I need to do that. Instead of just saying like, just do it. Like, yeah, give them a understanding of why and how to do it, and the understanding of it. Yeah, that's a good amount of our players and players across the country that you see, which is good, and it helps you. It's good. It helps grow you as a coach too, because now like you got that like this is why, this is how, and this is what we need to do on it.
Did you get an understanding of what Keon meant when he said that he felt disconnected?
Look, again, I answered a lot of the questions. I think the most important thing, win, all right? And then for us, like, how we can do that is by beating the Bills, right? Win.
Last question.
DeMarcus, sorry.
Yeah.
The numbers of black head coaches and coordinators have improved certainly over the last few years.
Yep.
But as a guy's in the first time getting a shot at that job, I wonder if you felt any pressure this season to perform, to show maybe future GMs, owners, that people who look like you are capable of doing the job.
Yeah, I mean, you think about that as a coach or black head coach or black coordinators. Yeah, it's not that many of us, and the opportunities that you have or will be given, possibly the lack of. So, I mean, you think about that. I don't think about pressure on that. I think about showing up daily, doing my job, being where my feet is, and I think about like. And I'm a Christian man, so I always look at it as like God opened doors that man can't, and He'll also close doors that man can't open. So if it's whatever it is for me, it is for me. But I do think I know I need to be present in the moment of where I'm at and do a great job there. And if I do a good job where I'm at, then all the other stuff will take care of itself. So, like, I don't really look at it as pressure or anything like that. I just look at it as like, I'm blessed with the opportunity. I know I got a great opportunity and a great job that a lot of people in the world will want, and I don't really take that lightly at all. And so that's really my goal and my focus every single day on that. And then I let the cards fall where they fall, no matter what. That's kind of how I look at it on a daily basis. Thank you.
Okay, so that's DeMarcus Covington, the Patriots defensive coordinator, and today we've had a chance to hear from him and Alex Van Pelt here this morning. 855-PATS-500 on the TPX hotline, 855-PATS-500. So it's time now for you to jump in. Russell Baxter will be here in about 10 minutes or so to run through Week 18 and some of the other scenarios that are still out there and available for the final week of the regular season before we get into the postseason. Certainly think that the Black Monday scenario is up for a topic of debate, at least right now. There are, some reports that have come out this morning after the New Year holiday that have suggested, Dan Graziano from ESPN.com has come out with a story this morning where he says he believes, as an NFL insider, believes that Gerard Mayo will return to the Patriots as head coach next year. I know that wouldn't come as a terrible shock and surprise to many of you. That's something that Evan and I have believed strongly ever since this team's fortunes started to go south this particular season, and maybe that's to the early to middle part of the season. It's been a struggle this year overall, and so we've been discussing Gerard Mayo's job security or job safety, as it will, for the better part of 2 months, 2.5 months, really. I mean, since October, I think that's reasonable, just because of the way the team has played. And naturally, when a team isn't playing well, the first focus is going to be on the head coach. And is the head coach doing what the head coach needs to be doing in order to maximize, the most opportunity out of his team? And look, we all know that Gerard is learning on the job. The problem here is that he doesn't quite have, I think the analogy that I've used previously is he's got a hole in his bat. And he needs a solid stick to swing with, and I think that's up to the rest of the internal organization to be able to bring those people in. And then if they cannot do that, does that save his job? No, not necessarily, because ultimately the head coach has to be responsible for the final product on the field. And his lieutenants, as you just heard from both Van Pelt and Covington, are a part of that. They are an extension of the head coach and his philosophy. And if they don't perform, then the head coach isn't performing. And so, the head coach is going to have to make a change. I personally believe, I don't know which one, if either one, but I personally believe there will be change to some extent within the coaching staff and within the hierarchy of the Patriots coaching and scouting system. I can't tell you which one. But I think there will be a shakeup. I think there will be more of a focus. I think there will be more delineation of duties. Because I think everybody understands that, okay, we got to pass this year. Got to pass this year. That's part of it. We're not going to get the same thing next year. If this team gets off to an 0 start next year, or we get to October and this team is, 0-4, 1-3, yeah, I think then you're going to hear more and more grumbling, and it will consume us all in that regard. And you could see some, mid-season changes that I don't think anybody really wants to have happen. Everybody wants to see, if you're tuned into this program, if you follow this football team at all, you want to see this team have some success. That's why you're fans. If you're tuned in here because you're a fan of another team and you're just curious as to what's going on or what might they do with the first pick, or maybe, you were not particularly a fan when the Patriots are going through all of their winning, over most of the last 2 decades. Look, fact of the matter is that every team in the NFL goes through this at some point in time or another. All teams do. Life in the National Football League is cyclical. No one can continue to win for a long time. I know it seems like, the Chiefs can keep it up for a long time. The Lions are certainly an up-and-coming team. The Vikings, up-and-coming. How about the turnaround story for, a guy like Sam Darnold? A few years ago, he's seeing ghosts on the sideline. And now he looks like he's been entrenched. And he is entrenched. He should be. Minnesota's got an opportunity to be the number 1 seed of the NFC this year. I think you got to give the guy credit when you get surrounded by the right people. So, people were saying that about New England as well. How long can this go? And they did it for the better part of 20 years. All things are cyclical. The NFL is set up this way to be cyclical. The NFL is set up for parity. And it's up to the teams and their individual processes and their moves, their smarts, their innovativeness. It's up to their individuals to work harder, to potentially find answers to questions that aren't readily available, that give them an advantage over the competition. I mean, I don't think the AFC East turned out to be quite as competitive as any of us thought it would be to start this year, right? Buffalo dominated the division again. Buffalo is a deserving, division championship team. Buffalo has been my pick from day one this season to be the AFC representative in the Super Bowl, to win the AFC championship. And that's with all due respect to Kansas City. I just thought it would be intrinsically hard for Kansas City to, they've gone back-to-back, win 3 in a row. I don't know. Although they've only lost 1 game of the regular season, so they haven't really done anything that would, keep us from saying, they're a legitimate contender. They are. Kansas City could do something that, no team has ever done. And so that could be motivation enough. That could be incentive enough. And let's also keep in mind that Kansas City has a coach that before all is said and done, Andy Reid will go down, in that choice, 5 or 6 coaches that are thought of to be the all-time greats in this game. I believe that because of what he's done in his past and certainly what he's doing now. And he's also paired up with potentially a generational quarterback, just like Bill Belichick had Tom Brady. Andy Reid's got Patrick Mahomes. And there are enough good pieces And Kansas City's smart enough, I think, within the front office to know that the more things stay the same, the more chances you have to lose. So you can't stay the same in the NFL. You have to constantly reform and reinvent yourself. And I think that's kind of where the Patriots dropped the ball years ago, if we want to get back into that. Not necessarily, but just for the sake of conversation here. I think the Patriots made a decision to let Tom Brady go when they did. I don't think it was the wrong move. But at the same time, I don't know we'd be where we are right now if the Patriots had kept Tom around for a couple of more years. But that wasn't a move that Bill Belichick really wanted to make. We know what his modus operandi was. We know that his tendency was to, let guys go before they had, completely used up all of their value. He wanted to let guys go when they were on the downswing of their careers. He's got a history of doing that. So maybe he missed by a couple of years with a few guys. I think the one that he probably missed most with was Adam Vinatieri, to be quite honest with you. And here's Adam Vinatieri now, who is, a candidate for the Hall of Fame. Or looks like he's going to be in the Hall of Fame. He should be in the Hall of Fame. And the one that puzzles me, and Coach Belichick actually came out on, because when they put the finalists out there, there's no Rodney Harrison on the list, and I'm kind of puzzled by that one as well, because he looked like he was gaining momentum toward getting that way, and all of a sudden now he's not good enough. So did he do something in the offseason that would keep him from being a legitimate candidate? And I know I'm kind of bouncing around here, but each of these subjects sort of ties in, respectively, and history is made to be revisionist. It's made for us to go back over and wonder if things could have changed if we'd done this or done that. The fact of the matter is that, like I said, the original premise here was that all teams go through what the Patriots have gone through. I think it's just stunned most of us over the length of time that the Patriots now have gone through this, because you can make the legitimate argument. It's really been, now we're going on almost 6 years since 2019, since, pre-COVID. For the Patriots' troubles to really take hold, even though they did have the one in Mac Jones' rookie year. They had the playoffs and they got to the postseason and they were 10-7. And you thought, well, all right, maybe they kind of arrested some of the regression. And unfortunately, the fundamental changes that were made in that offseason, with some of the coaching moves, and it was a big mistake by Bill Belichick, and I think this is what ultimately led to his downfall. And here we are. How do you clean up this mess? How do you move forward from this point in time? You have your opinions. We've given our opinions. I think these opinions will continue to sort of manifest themselves, especially over the next 72 to 96 hours once we get to Monday after the final game is played this Sunday here at Gillette, and the result of that is known. And whatever that result might be, there needs to be a definitive step forward in that direction. There can't be any wishy-washy here. This is the route we're going. This is our game plan. I'd be thrilled to see the Patriots come out and announce it one way or the other. This is what we've chosen to do, for better or for worse. We felt like this is in the best interest of the franchise and the football team at this stage of our development and move back into potential contention in the NFL. Decisions need to be made, and some of them, I think, are still being formulated. And that's pretty much where we are heading into Sunday.
A real woman could stop you from drinking.
You have to be a real big woman.
It's time to go around the NFL with football guru Russell Baxter.
From now on, your name is Flounder.
On Patriots Playbook.
Flounder.
The one and only Bax football guru, Mr. Russell Baxter. Happy New Year, Russell. How are you, sir?
In the college playoffs.
Gotcha. All right. I missed everything you just said, so I'm going to start over again. Happy New Year, sir. How are you?
New Year to you too. Most people miss everything I say. I guess my wish for this year is I hope the NFL playoffs are more competitive than the college football playoffs.
Well, that's a great place to start. I'm glad you said that because outside of, I guess, the Peach Bowl, the Texas-Arizona State game on Wednesday, a lot of these games have lacked for excitement, especially down the stretch run. I have to overall think, though, that just because of the newness of it all, that the college football playoff is still a unique thing. They've obviously stolen from the NCAA basketball tournament to set this up in tournament format, and but I've enjoyed it. I've liked it. Even the games that are one-sided somewhat, because you're going to decide this on the field, and you're not going to let largely a bunch of know-nothing, sports writers and media people decide a national champion, which is the way it was done for decades, as you well know. So I'm actually kind of cool with this. But, I wonder if, I don't know. Everything's becoming so professional-driven now with players in the college level being paid, and the way that they're setting up, the college postseason, kind of like the NFL postseason, and I don't know. Have we lost something unique to the sport of football overall, or is this really evolution that we're watching taking place?
Well, don't get me wrong. I'm glad they're deciding it on the field. And I have no problem with a 12-team format. For like you said, for years, it was done with a ballot box. Okay, which games are decided not on paper. Okay, which for a long time that was college football.
Yeah.
So I get all that and so on, and and there's going to be a lot of people who jump all over this that games have not been competitive and so on. My wish is that the NFLs are, and we've been lucky. We've been lucky with the Super Bowl. The last 3 Super Bowls have all been decided by a field goal, by 3 points.
Yeah.
And one in overtime. So they'll get this ironed out. And there's no question about it. Maybe they need to do less of a bracket and more like the NFL does with seeds, 1 through 6 or something like that, and where you reseed afterwards. I think that's helped out the NFL a lot. It used to be. You remember up until 1989 when we had the playoff format in the NFL, where there was 4 teams per conference or 5 teams per conference, you weren't allowed to play a team in your own division in the playoffs unless it was the NFC or AFC championship game.
Right.
And they threw that right out the window with the change in 1990 when they went to, the more traditional seeding format and so on. So maybe that's what college football needs to do, which, obviously a Herculean task. But listen, it was also a year of transition in college football. The Big Ten is what now? The Big 50?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's a who's who is not in there. So, again, I'm sure they'll get it figured out and so on. I like watching all the college bowl games in this format for selfish reasons, because it kind of gets me caught up on some of the young men who are going to be available in the NFL draft in April.
True. Do we put too much emphasis on what may happen as opposed to what will happen or what can happen? And I ask that question just because there are, a half a dozen or more teams. I think we know for sure there are 3 teams that have coaching openings at this present time. But because of that, I'm just kind of curious the balance over, trying to plan for the now as opposed to planning for the future? Or is the NFL just a sport made for planning about the future because you can ultimately only have one winner? I'm just kind of curious as to your thoughts on that.
Oh, that's an excellent question, as a matter of fact. And yet, the planning for the future goes on with our fellow media all the time.
Yeah.
We tried to decide the league MVP in September. We try and decide a team's win-loss record in May when the schedule comes out.
Right.
So on,
right.
On and on and on and on. And here's a great example of what you're talking about, the future. Without a doubt, the biggest game of the season is Sunday night at Detroit. two 14-2 teams who will battle for the NFC North Division and the number 1 seed in the NFC. And by the way, the loser is going to be the 5th seed and has to play a road playoff game.
How great is that, though? I mean, that's pressure.
What have you heard more of this week? And I'm not kidding. Probably in recent weeks. Okay? Sam Darnold's contract status for next year. Okay? How about letting him get through this?
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
That is what,
yeah.
Should they do this? Should they franchise him? Should they bring in J.J. McCarthy and trade him? Should they, all this about a great comeback story. Sam Darnold's career completely revised.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. By the way, I don't think it's any coincidence that him and Geno Smith wound up leaving the Jets after short stints, and both have been very successful since.
Yep.
Okay. And they bounced around the league. So there's a reason the Jets have the longest active playoff drought in the league. Okay. It's not Aaron Rodgers for 17 games. Okay. Might be a Johnson & Johnson thing with the emphasis on Woody Johnson. Okay. So, but you're right. There is that speculation toward the future. Now, of course, I think it's a little harder in college football right now because of the transfer portal. Okay. Which I think people are still kind of feeling out, and some coaches are in favor of that, and some aren't.
Yep.
So I'll be curious to see where we go down the road with this. They jumped to the 12-team format pretty quick, and I don't think they'll go backwards.
No. I don't think it will either. In fact, I think ultimately there'll probably end up being, a campaign to expand it even further, which I think actually expanding it beyond, the quarterfinal round, the first round, and then the quarterfinal. I think it's ridiculous just because I think you're going to put, some of these athletes in harm's way. If you're talking about college kids playing 16, 17 games a year, I mean, it's tough enough for the pros to play 17 games a year now, and we're going to go to an 18th game, as you well know, in a few years anyway. It's inevitable. It's going to happen just because the preseason is so lousy, and that's the reason why, that'll end up happening. But I don't see that happening in the college game. I just don't know if it can. Yeah, the players are getting paid, but physically, they're not up to the demand. They're not up to the demands of what the pro game really entails.
All right. Think about this, John, to emphasize your point. Minnesota or Detroit is going to be a wild card team.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Which means in order for them to win the Super Bowl, they're going to have to play in 21 games.
Yep.
21 games.
21 games. Yep. That's a lot.
21 games that count.
Yep.
Okay.
That's
Not
a lot.
Include the two preseason, which depending on how you played it and all that stuff. I'm sorry, or 3 preseason.
Yep.
Okay. So, and it's like you said, we're going to add one. Now we'll probably almost get rid of who knows what's going to happen with the preseason down the future. We saw during the COVID year that nobody played in the preseason, and a team still managed to win the Super Bowl. So it is a lot of demands. But I'll go back to something you said about 5 minutes ago. It is becoming more like the pro game. We're talking about money, and now we're talking about one of the greatest head coaches of all time, basically treating it like a business, which I think was the appeal to Bill Belichick going to North Carolina. I mean, he brought Mike Lombardi with him. I don't think he brought him with him to keep him company.
That's true. That's yeah. Go ahead. I didn't mean to step on you there.
No, you didn't step on me at all. I mean, it is. It's funny. It's because on the field in recent years, the pro game has taken a lot from college. Okay? And now, off the field wise, now the college game seems like it's taking a lot from the professional aspect.
Yep, very true. All right, so let's we'll save the Patriots stuff and the Bills for last. But you kind of alluded to the stuff that's on the line here in Week 18. The NFL, as we know, is kind of taking care of the schedule where we have some of these matchups to where potentially we have meaningful football. And certainly you can see in some of these games before the season started where you thought, or the NFL thought, there would be some meaningful football, like with the Commanders playing at the Cowboys. The Cowboys just kind of failed able to get there. Maybe even to an extent with the Bears playing at the Packers, Texans and the Titans, Saints and the Bucks, Chiefs and the Broncos. That's one that might still, have a little bit of, things to do there. Chargers playing at the Raiders. One team is certainly there. The other team is not, for the most part, out of it overall. So what are these teams looking to do other than just upset the apple cart? Are they already, as we kind of started our conversation today, are they already pointed toward the future because there's really no other place for them to look right now?
No, I don't think they are. And I think last week proved that. Okay?
Okay.
Let's go back and look. The Giants have lost 10 in a row? And playing a team that was still alive for the playoffs?
Yep.
And went from scoring 215 points in 15 games to 45 in one afternoon.
Yeah.
What have the Raiders done the last 2 weeks? They were in the mix for the number one pick.
Mm-hmm.
They've won their last two games. So, as much as people like to throw out that they have nothing to play for, okay, so they think they're going to do this. To me, what's fascinating about this weekend is, first off, the NFL did a great job of lining up the games that affect each other, that affect more than one team at the same time. In other words, they took Saturday and put the whole AFC North on there, okay? So if Baltimore wins on Saturday afternoon, they clinch the North. Pittsburgh's already in. Cincinnati's still alive. If Baltimore by chance loses, and they did lose to the Browns earlier this year, okay, then if Pittsburgh wins, they win the North, okay? Miami's playing the Jets late on Sunday. That's because Denver and Kansas City are playing late. If Denver wins, they're in. If Denver loses and Miami wins, Miami's in, okay? Tampa Bay and Atlanta, I think, are both at the same time. And they, if Tampa wins, they win the division.
Right.
If Tampa loses and Atlanta wins the division, and then the other one is out completely. By the way, I'd like to remind people of this. If the Buccaneers win and win the NFC South, it'll be their fourth straight division title and fifth straight trip to the playoffs.
Wow.
The two teams that have longer streaks than that are Kansas City and Buffalo.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now Philly's going in for the fourth straight year, but if Tampa goes in for the fifth straight year, they have the longest streak in the NFC. I think that goes under the radar, probably, especially lately, because it'll be 2 years in a row there's no Tom Brady there. Okay? But Baker Mayfield's done a hell of a job as a starting quarterback, and Jason Light, their general manager,
yep,
does an absolute superb job. But I'll go back to Denver, Kansas City for a moment, because obviously, things should be easier for the Broncos because Patrick Mahomes is not playing. And I think Chris Jones is out, and goodness knows who else they're going to rest. Well, I went back and looked, and at the end of the last season, even though the Chiefs did not have the record they did, they finished 11-6. They were 10-6 going into that game. Patrick Mahomes was not their starting quarterback, John. Do you, by any chance, remember who it was?
Right off the top of my head, no.
No, you wouldn't. Okay? Blaine Gabbert. For the Chiefs.
How soon we forget.
And the Chiefs won and beat the Chargers.
Wow. Okay.
So this is a 15-1 team that we have already seen is not necessarily reliant
right
on Patrick Mahomes.
Yep.
And we've also seen the last 2 weeks if you go the last 4 games, a Denver defense that was playing better earlier in the year has allowed at least 30 points in 3 of their last 4 games.
Right.
Okay. So, and they lost that wild one to the Chargers. They beat the Browns on a Monday night, but it was what 41-32 that they wound up surviving.
Mm-hmm.
Jameis Winston threw the ball all over them. So I wouldn't take anything for granted when it comes to Kansas City laying down or any of these teams laying down. Okay, because as you well know, some of these guys who are playing, first off, players don't want to lose. Second off, some of these guys are playing the final game of their current contract.
Yeah.
All you need to do is put yourself on tape not trying.
Right.
And you'll see how many free agent offers you get in March and April.
Okay. All right, well, just for the uninitiated, just to sort of recap here, if the season were over today, the Broncos would be in as the last seed in the American Conference. Bucks would be in as the champs of the NFC South in the NFC. The teams that are on the bubble, Dolphins are still alive, the Bengals are still alive, and in the NFC, the Falcons are still alive. Of those teams that are still alive, but right now on the outside looking in, going into Week 18, who's the most likely candidate to make it?
As strange as it sounds, I think it might be Miami.
Okay. Yeah, I kind of agree with that because, again, the Dolphins have the Jets, and they obviously have to have, Kansas City beat Denver for them to have that opportunity. And the Bengals have to play Pittsburgh, which is going to be a little bit tougher, even though, Pittsburgh is likely to, be resting some folks as well. So
I don't know about that. I don't know if you're aware. The Steelers have not only lost 3 games in a row.
Yeah.
They've given up 90 points in the last 3 games.
Well, then maybe they don't want to rest so many people.
No, I'm not saying. Well, but here's the other thing. Cincinnati needs Denver and Miami to lose.
Right.
To get in. I mean, they need a little more help, and it's going to be really interesting to see what Joe Burrow winds up with this year.
Right.
Because if he leads the league in passing yards, I'm just throwing this out there now, and you'll see it later in print. If he leads the league in passing yards, John, and they don't make the playoffs, one of my favorite stats will upheld. Quarterbacks that have led the NFL or pro football in passing yards have won the Super Bowl once.
One time,
in 51 years.
I know. Seems like we mention this every year, doesn't it, Russell?
Yes, because it happened again last year.
Yep.
Okay, the only exception is Patrick Mahomes in 2022.
Yep.
He was the first one to do it. And, we'll see what happens to Joe Burrow. I will say this, if Cincinnati gets in, they're going to be an awfully dangerous team because they don't really seem to care that their defense can't stop anyone. Okay?
Right, for sure.
They're one of the highest scoring teams in the league. In fact, they're 5th in the league. What are they? 5th? Wait a minute. I'm sorry. 6th in the league in scoring. Okay?
Yep.
Which is pretty impressive. They're 29th in scoring defense. So, and we saw Kansas City during Mahomes' first year, very similar. Mahomes was MVP. His first year as a starter. MVP, big numbers. They had tried to outscore people, but as you well know, what they do that year, they scored 40 against the Patriots in the regular season and lost 43-40.
Yeah.
And then they scored 31 in the AFC Championship game and lost 37-31.
Right.
So eventually it does catch up with you. So to answer your question, I think Tampa wins. They're kind of back on a roll.
Yeah.
And they'll be the number 4 seed. Okay.
Yep.
And I think Miami's going to get in. Now the irony is, it looks like it's going to be Huntley at quarterback this week. And if Miami gets in, what is Tua's status?
Okay. I've got about a minute left here, Russell, but I wanted to get your quick thoughts on Buffalo. The fact is that they're locked in at 2. There's very little real incentive for them to win this game against the Patriots on Sunday. We all know that the Patriots need to lose to solidify the number 1 pick in the draft. How do you approach this game if you're Buffalo? And how do you approach this game if you're New England?
Well, I think you have to be cautious if you're Buffalo because you already know you're playing next week. Okay?
Yep.
You're the 2. And, you're going to play the 7. All right? So, it's different now than it was quite a few years ago, whereas, 2 teams don't get the opening week bye. It's only 1 now. And I think that has definitely changed strategies as far as resting players and so on. Then add in the 17th game.
Yeah.
Okay? So if you're a physical team like Buffalo, this is why I understand what the Eagles are doing with Saquon Barkley. Okay? And yes, by the way, if you did break the record, and he did it in 17 games. It's still the record, okay?
Yeah.
Go look at the record in the fact book. Regardless of the length of the season, okay, the record is the record, okay? They don't asterisk, they don't differentiate, and so on. So, but if you're the Bills, I think you have to be cautious, with James Cook, with Josh Allen. And as you know, you also have to tread a fine line of not being rusty.
Right.
And not getting rusty.
Right, for sure.
We saw that with the Colts a number of times. In 2019, I thought the Ravens didn't play it well. And they were the number one seed. It was Lamar Jackson's first year, and they got walloped by the Titans in the divisional round at home.
Right.
So how you play that down the stretch and stay sharp is very important. I remember 1 year Bill Belichick had a game. There was nothing to play for against the 49ers at home, and the Patriots really kind of stunk it up in the first half in that game, and he did not want to go in with that feeling into the playoffs.
Right.
So I think that's very, very important.
Sure.
Especially if you've recaptured momentum in the last couple of weeks, and if you're Buffalo, your defense took a little header. You wound up splitting with the Rams and the Lions. But you gave up an awful lot of points in the process.
Right. All right. Well, we'll try to recap this one more time after everything is said and done with this weekend's games, and certainly Black Monday coming up here with teams making changes on Monday after the regular season is over, and we'll try to run through this one more time if you're available next week. Russell, back our normal show time on Wednesday if you're around.
I will be around, and as we have seen a couple times during this season, we've had a few Black Tuesdays and Wednesdays already.
Yes, very true. Thank you, my friend. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Talk to you next week.
You got it. The one and only at BacksFootballGuru.com from the NFL Spin Zone and all of his good work there. Our reminder here, Bridgestone is the official tire of the New England Patriots and proud to partner with Sullivan Tire, New England's headquarters for quality Bridgestone tires. Visit sullivantire.com to find a location near you. And do your New Year's resolutions include upgrading your mattress? Bob's Discount Furniture can help. Whether you're looking for a plush pillow top cloud or need a firmer memory foam feel, there's a budget-friendly Bobopedic mattress for you. Plus, Bob's mattresses come with best-in-the-biz warranties and cost hundreds, even thousands less than the competition. So stop in and get your best rest yet, thanks to Bob's Discount Furniture, the official furniture store of the New England Patriots. Patriots Unfiltered is coming up next. Catch 22 will be right here on Patriots.com radio thereafter, here today. Patriots and the Bills, 1 o'clock kickoff Eastern time here on Sunday at Gillette. The Playbook will be back in our regular time slot next Wednesday afternoon at 2:30 p.m. Eastern time. That was our regular time slot during the course of the regular season, and we will wrap up the regular season for you from the Playbook perspective and go after next Wednesday into our monthly podcast format for the offseason, and obviously there is still a ton to talk about. Enjoyed the game this weekend. Patriots Unfiltered is coming up next.
Thank you for downloading this podcast. Subscribe on Apple, Google Play, and everywhere else you listen. Like the show? Please rate and review us. Listener comments and ratings help keep us high in the podcast rankings so new listeners can find us. Be sure to check Patriots.com for more news and more podcasts.